Hi world, it's about 7 a.m. in the morning. It's the 9th of February 2016 and this is my take on the astrological fifth house. Fifth house relates to the fifth sign of a zodiac, that of Leo. Remember, planets in signs show how energies manifest in you. Planets in houses show how that planetary energy manifesting through you manifests in the eyes of the outside world. The fifth house. Fifth house is most commonly known as the house of creativity. It's also the house of fun. It's commonly associated with gambling, to a lesser extent with risk-taking, with sports, with games, with the idea of having pleasure and fun, in which ways it's very related to the sign of Leo, obviously. And primarily it is the house that's associated with one's creative endeavours, the way that one creates things into and onto the outside world, whether that is in an artistic way, a speculative way, or through the most common example of creativity, through procreativity. Hence the fifth house is known as the house of children. The challenging side of the fifth house, there's two different dimensions. I suppose one of the positive sides of the fifth house is pride. It's archetypally Leonian in this way, in that one can be proud of oneself, proud of one's efforts and one's achievements, but in the fifth house it is the lion's pride, the pride of one's children. That one's children is the lion's pride, so pride in one's children and of one's children. One's children are one's pride and joy. Pride also in oneself and one's achievements. But the opposite side of pride, of course, is arrogance and conceit and vanity. And here the fifth house can be very egotistic. Lots of planets in the fifth house, especially if there's difficult aspects, can result in a might makes right attitude, or an almost attitude of regality where other people's opinions don't even matter, let alone come into the equation. Similar to the first house, people with a strong fifth house, if it's too dominated, they can consider that the universe ends right there and that beyond the end of their life there is nothing worth considering. Of course, this makes for a degree of loneliness, but also for a kind of haughtiness. They consider themselves too superior to the world to take part. Conversely, of course, this can result in a very childish way of behaviour, where they never really grow up to get older than 7, regardless of their physical age, and they still feel that the world owes them a living, and that they're really puzzled as to why the world doesn't recognise their naturally innate leadership material. Of course, the rest of the world is just looking at them and going, "You arrogant sod, get off it and we're going to ignore you." The neutral side of the fifth house is about the way that one brings an element of joy into one's life, the creative output, the fun that one gets from doing things that bring pleasure, harmony and fun, yes, into one's life. I say about how the negative side of the fifth house can be very childish. The neutral stroke positive side of this shows how the fifth house can be very childlike. Childish, these people never grow older than 7 or 8 in their opinions or attitudes. Childlike, they mature fast, but they retain a degree of innocence, of playfulness, and they play for the fun of playing, not to win, but to play. People with a lot of planets in the fifth house, particularly the moon, often find that they get on with children, especially the under-8s, much better than they do with adults, because children are innocent and they play for the fun of playing, not for winning. Difficult planets in the fifth house can create a kind of arrogance, borderline self-obsessiveness. And if, for example, you've got Mercury in the fifth house under difficult aspects, you're always going to consider yourself as having a superior opinion and intellect to people around you, even if it's palpably not true. Whereas someone with a playful or a positive Venus in the fifth house is always going to enjoy the pleasures of sport, of fun, of going to music concerts, of going to theatre, enjoying the quintessentially aesthetic and gentle sides of life. A retrograde Neptune in the fifth house is someone who's probably going to be a bit of a hedonist and not know where to draw the line when it comes to pleasure. Pleasure is always the big thing with the fifth house, and it's knowing when to draw the line, when to stop with moderation. The positive side of the fifth house, of course, beyond that of children, is that of finding joy in every moment of life. Joyful, pleasure, and having a degree of happiness in and with oneself. You can't be happy all the time, no one can. But people with a mature and advanced fifth house energy, they find a quality of contentment in their life, and they develop this as they get older, and these are genuinely the people who get younger as they get older. If you've got a healthy fifth house in your life, in your chart, then celebrate the inner child within, and hopefully it'll never leave you. There you go, folks, my take on the astrological fifth house. Enjoy.